23 women were chosen before the auctioneer even looked at her. At 31, Hannah Grace Prescott was a ghost, a widow with a dead husband's debts, a scar she couldn't explain, and eyes that had forgotten how to hope. She had been rejected at 4 auctions already. The younger, prettier women always went first. She was always the one left standing in the cold. But just as the auctioneer was about to send her away, a voice cut through the silence. "Her! I'll take her!" The man who spoke had a face weathered by war and marked by a long, jagged scar. He looked like trouble. He looked like her last chance. What no one knew was that this broken cowboy and this damaged woman were about to build something no one thought possible. A love story written in survival, a family born from ashes, and a revenge against the most powerful man in the territory that would change everything. But first, she had to survive the wedding night with a stranger who swore he would never touch her. This story will show you that your past does not define your worth, that being chosen last does not mean you deserve less, and that sometimes the most broken people are the only ones who can truly save each other. If you believe in second chances, stay until the end. And if this story touches your heart, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. Your words mean everything to this channel. In the biting cold of Silver Crossing, Hannah stood apart from the other mail-order brides. The younger, prettier women were picked first. Hannah wasn't smiling. She'd forgotten how, somewhere between her wedding day and the night her husband Edward died, a kind woman named Clara, already chosen, paused by her. "You ought to smile," she advised. "Men out here want an easy life, not a hard one." Hannah just watched her walk away to a decent-looking rancher, wondering if his clean clothes meant he had clean hands. The auctioneer cleared his throat. "All right, gentlemen, our last lady for the day is Miss Patricia Dunn, 24 years old." Hands shot up immediately. Hannah knew what was coming. Patricia would be sold, and she would be the last one left, an unwanted ghost. "Sold to Mr. Cartwright," the auctioneer announced with a tight smile. He then turned to Hannah. "And finally, we have Miss Hannah Prescott, 31, a widow. She can read and keep accounts." He waited. The silence was as heavy and cold as the falling snow. Men turned away, their business done. It was the same rejection she had faced at 4 other auctions. "No takers, it seems," the auctioneer said, relieved. "Well, Miss Presk, her." The voice came from the back of the crowd. A tall man stepped out of the shadows, his face weathered and marked by a long scar. He looked like trouble. He also looked like her only hope. "I'll take her," he repeated. "What's the fee?" The auctioneer sputtered, but the man cut him off. "Samuel Mallister. I have a homestead 40 miles north. I need a housekeeper. How much?" He pulled out a leather pouch. When the auctioneer stammered out the $15 fee, Mallister dropped the coins in his hand. "We done?" As the paperwork came out, Hannah heard herself say, "I can't write my name." It was a lie. Edward had forced her to learn to forge his signature, but Mallister didn't blink. "Then make your mark. It's legal enough." She made a simple X next to his cramped signature, binding herself to another stranger. "Congratulations," the auctioneer said, his voice flat. Mallister ignored him and turned to Hannah. His eyes were the color of a winter storm, and they were completely empty. "You have belongings?" he asked. "A bag at the boarding house." "Get it. We leave before dark." When she returned, he had 2 horses ready. He walked away without another word, and Hannah followed him out of town, leaving a life of nothing for a future she couldn't possibly imagine. "You ride?" he asked as she struggled to mount her horse. "I can learn," she said. He watched her for a moment, and something flickered in his dead eyes. "It's a 40-mile ride in this weather. 2 days, maybe 3. You'll have your own tent. I won't touch you." Hannah felt a small bit of tension leave her shoulders. "Why did you choose me?" she asked. He was quiet for a long time. "Because you weren't trying," he said finally. "Everyone else was smiling, performing. You just stood there like you'd given up. It told me you wouldn't have expectations. I just need someone to cook, clean, and run the house, he continued, his face unreadable. I don't need a wife or conversation. Just an extra pair of hands. Then why not hire a housekeeper? A housekeeper can quit, he said, looking down at her. A wife is bound by law. You will have food, shelter, and safety. In return, you work. That's the arrangement. It was cold and honest. More honest than anything Edward had ever said. All right, Hannah said, I can work. Good, mount up. They rode into the fading light, two strangers heading into the unknown. There was nothing for Hannah to look back at. That night they camped under some pines. Mallister worked with quiet skill, setting up 2 tents and building a fire. They ate in silence. A storm's coming, he said after they finished. We might be stuck here an extra day. All right. You're not scared, being out here with a stranger? I've been scared before, she answered. It never helped. That flicker appeared in his eyes again before it was gone. Get some sleep, he said, pulling his rifle onto his lap. I'll keep watch. In her tent, safe for the first time in a long while, Hannah lay down. Sleep eventually came, but it brought nightmares of Edward's hands and the sharp, ugly sound of bone hitting bone. Hannah woke with a gasp, lost in the dark, until she heard Mallister's rough voice from outside the tent. Easy now, you are safe, just a bad dream. He could not see her, but he knew. I am fine, she whispered. He replied so softly she almost missed it. I get them too. She lay there, thinking of this stranger who spoke the truth, no matter how ugly. The next morning, a furious storm hit, a wall of white that forced them to stop. There is a trapper's cabin up ahead, he yelled over the wind. The little shack was a welcome shelter. While Mallister built a fire, Hannah cared for the horses in the lean-to beside it. When she came inside, he was staring into the flames. This storm could last 2, maybe 3 days, he said. Hannah felt a strange laugh bubble up. It is not like I have anywhere else to be. She sat across the fire from him, a habit her cruel husband Edward had taught her. You jump when I move fast, Mallister stated plainly. It was not a question. Old habits, she said. Your husband hurt you. Again, not a question. Yes. He is gone now. Good, he said. The single word surprised her. No pity. Just a simple judgment. He drank, Hannah found herself explaining. It was too late by the time I knew how bad it was. For how long? His voice was tight. 7 years. She touched the small scar on her chin. He threw a glass. I was not quick enough. Mallister was quiet for a long moment. My wife, Mary, died, he said, his eyes fixed on the fire. 5 years ago. Our baby died a few days later. Hannah's heart ached for him. She was a good woman. When she passed, a part of me went with her. I have not told anyone that for years. He finally looked at her. Maybe it is because you are the first person in a long time who does not look at me like I am a monster. I will never lay a hand on you, he promised. I reckon you have had enough of that for a lifetime. You just have to trust that time will prove my words true. They sat in a comfortable silence, a new understanding passing between them. On the 3rd day, the storm finally broke. They rode hard through deep snow, with Mallister guiding them through paths she could never have found. As evening fell, they reached a ridge overlooking a valley. Below, a cabin with smoke curling from its chimney sat peacefully in the snow. Home, Mallister said, but the word held no warmth. As they reached the house, the cold had seeped deep into Hannah's bones. Mallister helped her from her horse, his hands briefly steadying her waist. I will handle the horses. The door is open. Inside, she found a cold, dark room. She stirred the embers in the fireplace, bringing a dim light to the space. It was one large room, clean but empty of any personal touch. It felt more like a shelter than a home. The loft is yours, Mallister said, stamping the snow from his boots. The bedroom, he said quietly, was hers. I have not been in there since she died. It has been 5 years, Hannah said gently. I know how long it has been, he snapped back. Hannah knew she should be quiet, but she could not stop herself. It is not healthy, Mallister. Hiding from your grief will not make it disappear. His eyes flashed with a raw anger she had not seen before. You have been here 10 minutes, and you are telling me how to live my life? She met his gaze without fear. I see a man who died 5 years ago, but just forgot to lie down. The cabin went completely still. She expected a blow, but instead, a rusty, unused laugh broke from him. You have got some nerve, he said, shaking his head. Mary would have liked you. He turned away from her then. Get some sleep. Hannah climbed to the loft. Through the floorboards, she watched him bank the fire. He moved like a man always expecting a fight. Good night, she called down to him. After a pause, he answered, Good night, Mrs. Mallister. It was the first time he had used her name. Lying in the dark, she realized how much her life had changed in just a few short days. The next morning, she woke to an empty cabin and a note. He had gone to check on his cattle. The cabin was well stocked but neglected, a place where someone only survived. Hannah could not help herself. She started to clean. The habit of keeping a perfect house, beaten into her by Edward, was hard to break. When Mallister came back that evening, the main room was spotless and stew was cooking over the fire. He stopped in the doorway and just stared for a moment. You have been busy, he said, hanging up his coat. They ate in a comfortable silence, the tension from the night before gone. As she washed the dishes, he watched her from the table. You do not have to do all this, he said gently. You do not have to make everything perfect. You were hired to keep this place running, not change it. He gestured around the cabin. Hannah's hands stopped moving in the dishwater. This is how I'm useful. He shook his head. You don't have to earn your place here, Hannah. Edward told you your worth was in your work. That was a lie. Tears pricked her eyes, the first she'd allowed herself since the funeral. This rough man's kindness broke through the walls she had built over 7 years. I understand, she whispered. Good, he said, stepping back. Now finish up and get some rest. The days fell into a quiet routine. Sam worked the ranch from sunup to sundown. Hannah managed the house. They spoke very little, but the silence grew comfortable. She learned he took his coffee black and sometimes stared out at 2 wooden crosses on a distant hill. He learned she flinched at sudden movements and froze if his voice got too loud. He started giving her space, a kindness Edward never showed. 2 weeks after she arrived, a rider appeared on the ridge. Sam saw him first and reached for his rifle. Get in the house, he said, his voice low. From the window, Hannah watched a well-dressed man meet Sam in the yard. She couldn't hear their words, but Sam stood like a stone wall, his hand always near his gun. The meeting was short. The rider turned his expensive horse and left. When Sam came inside, his face was grim. That was Colonel Marcus Whitfield. He wants this ranch. He explained that his land controlled the only good creek in the valley. He's been trying to run me off for 3 years, cut fences, cattle gone missing. Sam's voice was flat. He's trying to break me. What he don't understand is there's nothing left of me to break. Hannah wondered if her being there might change that. That night she woke up screaming from a nightmare about Edward. Sam was at her loft ladder in a heartbeat. Hannah, you're safe. It was just a dream. He climbed halfway up. Can I come up? She nodded. He sat on the edge of her bed, solid and real in the moonlight. Tell me about Philadelphia, he said gently. So she talked about her father's print shop and the smell of ink and paper, and slowly the shaking stopped. My Mary used to have bad dreams, he said quietly when she finished. I'd sit with her just like this. Hannah looked at him. You're not my husband, Sam. It was the first time she'd said his name. A look passed over his face. No, he said softly. I'm not. He climbed down, leaving her alone in the dark. For the first time in 7 years, Hannah felt the beginning of hope. 3 weeks in, Sam left for town, promising to be back in 3 days. On the 3rd day, his ranch hand Miguel appeared at the door, his face pale. "Come quick," he urged. Behind the barn lay 20 head of cattle in the snow, their throats cut. "It was Whitfield's men," Miguel said, his jaw set hard. "I saw them riding off. They couldn't be stopped. They always come back." Hannah stared at the dead cattle, a clear message from Whitfield that he could reach her whenever he pleased. She asked Miguel when Sam would be back. He figured tonight, maybe tomorrow. She decided they would wait and tell no one. Miguel looked at her, a new respect in his eyes, admitting she wasn't like the last 3 women who ran from trouble. She told him firmly, "I am not running." "Good," he said, then told her to lock herself in the cabin while he kept watch. With a rifle in her lap, Hannah watched the ridge until Sam returned after dark, weary and covered in snow. He saw her face and immediately knew something was wrong. "Whitfield's men," she said. 20 cattle. "That is nearly $1,000, Sam said, his voice cold. It was half his money for the whole year. He told her there was nothing he could legally do. Whitfield owned the sheriff, the judge, and half the territory. Anything Sam did would be turned against him. Hannah refused to accept that just surviving was enough, remembering how survival had become its own kind of cage for her. She insisted there had to be a way to fight back that did not end with him in jail or worse. When he asked why she cared, Hannah told him this was her home now, and she was tired of seeing bullies win. Sam stared at her for a long time. "You are either the bravest or the craziest woman I have ever met," he said. "Maybe both," she replied. The next morning, they rode out to see the damage. The blood was frozen in the snow like a stark warning. Sam knew Whitfield wanted him to fight back, to give him a reason to use the law against him. "That is what I have been doing for 3 years, Sam said, just taking it. But Whitfield's attacks were getting worse, from cut fences to a burned barn, and now this." They rode back in a heavy silence. That night, instead of turning in, Sam spread out his old account books on the table. He was looking for proof. He explained that years ago he filed complaints with the territorial marshal, but nothing ever came of it. He kept detailed records of every threat, every crime. Hannah saw the cramped but clear handwriting and called it evidence. "Evidence no one will look at," he said bitterly. "Maybe the local marshal will not," she said, "but what about the federal government?" The idea grew as she spoke. Federal marshals do not answer to local strongmen like Whitfield. If his crimes crossed federal lines, like fraud or violating homestead laws, they might get involved. Sam was skeptical. She explained that her late husband was a lawyer. Before he drank himself to death, she helped with his paperwork and learned how to build a case. She proposed they investigate Whitfield's business deals and land purchases for anything illegal. Men like him get powerful by breaking rules, she insisted, not by following them. This was dangerous, but doing nothing was a slower death. Sam was quiet, then finally asked if she truly thought she could find something. She did not know, but she would rather die trying than die waiting. That broke something in him. He said his late wife, Mary, used to say the same thing. Die doing, not waiting. He confessed that after she passed, he forgot how to do anything but wait. "Your showing up," he said, "reminded me I was doing it all wrong." She smiled a little. "I just said there might be another way." By dawn, they had the beginnings of a plan. 3 days later, Hannah and Miguel rode into Silver Crossing. She went to the general store, run by a sharp-eyed widow named Ruth Crawford, who had been kind to her. Hannah asked Mrs. Crawford for information about Colonel Whitfield. Ruth's hands froze on the fabric she was folding. "That is a dangerous subject," she warned. After confirming Sam knew, Ruth led her to a private back room. She explained that Whitfield arrived 15 years ago with money and connections. In 10 years, he owned the bank, the mill, and half the town. He got powerful by finding people's weaknesses. Ruth told stories of homesteaders who sold their land for nothing after strange accidents, of businesses burning down then being bought for cheap. She spoke of people who opposed him meeting with legal trouble or worse. The problem was, Whitfield was always careful. He never did his own dirty work, and the men who did it for him often disappeared. Ruth thought for a moment, then mentioned one possible lead. A man named Thomas Byrne, who was Whitfield's bookkeeper 3 years ago. He knew all the secrets. When Byrne tried to leave town, he had an accident. The official story was that he fell from a cliff while hunting. But Ruth did not believe it. Thomas Byrne, she said, was terrified of heights. Before he died, Byrne told her husband he had hidden copies of documents that proved Whitfield's crimes, promising the truth would come out if anything happened to him. But the documents were never found. Ruth, the saloon owner, gave me a warning that changed everything. She believed a man named Thomas Byrne, one of Whitfield's lackeys, had hidden documents that could ruin him. She wouldn't say more, worried for her own people. "Be careful," she told me. "Whitfield has eyes everywhere. The last man who crossed him ended up at the bottom of a cliff." I looked her square in the eye and said, "I've survived worse than him." For the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. I rode back and told Sam everything. He grew grim as I spoke. "Thomas Byrne," he said. "Quiet, nervous fella. I never understood why he stuck with Whitfield. It turns out he didn't have a choice. None of them do." Sam stared out at the snow. "This is bigger than I thought. Whitfield ain't just a bully with money, he is a murderer. And we were going to prove it. We would take the evidence to the newspapers, make so much noise that no one could ignore it." He looked at me, his eyes full of concern. "You would risk your life for a ranch that is not even yours?" I stepped closer to him. "It is mine," I said. "You made it mine when you chose me. I am tired of watching bullies win." He reached out and touched my cheek. His fingers were rough from years of hard work. "Hannah," he said, his voice low, "I do not know what I did to deserve you." He leaned in, resting his forehead against mine. "We will find those papers," he promised. "We will bring him down, together." In that moment, we were connected. Then a gunshot shattered the window. Sam tackled me to the floor as another bullet ripped through the cabin. We were pinned down. "The back door," I whispered. "I can get out and circle behind them." He told me about a pistol his late wife, Mary, had hidden under the floorboards by the fireplace. I crawled toward it, my heart pounding. My fingers found the loose board, and there it was, oiled and loaded. I grabbed it. "I am going," he said. "Count to 10, then make some noise." I slipped out into the freezing night, using the barn for cover. I spotted them, 3 men in all. I had never aimed a gun at a person before. One of the men on foot saw me and raised his rifle. I fired first. The shot went wide, but it sent him diving for cover. The others started shooting my way. I ducked behind the barn, then heard Sam yell from inside, trying to draw their fire. I stepped out and fired again. This time, I did not miss. The man went down, clutching his leg. The 2 on horseback got spooked. "Fall back," one of them yelled. They grabbed their wounded partner and disappeared into the darkness. Sam ran out to me as I stood shaking. "Are you hit?" he asked, his voice full of panic. I just kept saying, "I shot someone." Sam took the pistol from my trembling hands and pulled me close. "You did what you had to do," he said gently, carrying me back inside the wrecked cabin. He wrapped me in a blanket. "Those were Whitfield's men," he said, his jaw tight. "This was a warning. He wants us to back off." But we were not going to. We would find those documents and end this before he could end us. He looked at me, a fire in his eyes I had not seen before. "You changed me, Hannah. I want to live now." Have you ever seen good people push so far? They had no choice but to fight back, even when it seemed hopeless? That was Sam and Hannah. After the attack, they knew running was not an option. He took her hands and promised to face whatever came next, together. She had not realized she was crying until she felt the tears. In that little cabin, they found a reason to stand their ground. The very next morning, their man Miguel came with news. He had tracked the attackers straight to the Whitfield ranch. Sam asked if he could prove it. Miguel said he saw them ride right through the gates. He recognized one of the men, Jennings, who was Whitfield's foreman. Hannah saw the connection, but Sam knew it was not enough. Jennings would deny everything. and Whitfield would give him an alibi. It would just be their word against his. Hannah insisted they needed to find real proof. She remembered being told that a man named Byrne had hidden documents somewhere. They just had to find who knew where. Miguel spoke up right away. He said Byrne had a sister, Martha, who lived in town and worked at the boarding house. She never left, even after her brother's death. Hannah realized this was their only real lead. She had to talk to the woman. Sam knew it was dangerous, that Whitfield's men would be watching. Still, he agreed to go with her, telling Miguel to stay and defend their home. They rode the back trails into Silver Crossing, trying to stay unseen. They found Martha Byrne in the kitchen of the old boarding house. The woman's voice was tired. She said she figured Hannah would come calling eventually. When Hannah mentioned needing help, Martha told her that kind of help gets folks buried in that town. It was what got her brother Thomas killed. Hannah tried to ask about the documents he hid, but Martha shut her down, saying she had already lost enough to Whitfield. Seeing the woman's fear, Hannah quietly told her about the 7 years her own husband had abused her. She explained that just surviving is not the same as truly living. Her words broke through Martha's fear. Through tears, Martha whispered that her brother Thomas had trusted her. He had told her where he hid the proof, making her promise to keep it safe. She led Hannah to a small room and lifted a floorboard. Beneath it was a leather satchel wrapped in cloth. It held 15 years of records detailing Whitfield's crimes, from fraud and bribery all the way to murder. Hannah's hands trembled as she took the satchel. Martha explained she had been waiting for someone strong enough to use the information. Hannah admitted she was scared, but more scared of doing nothing. Martha looked her square in the eyes and said, "Then burn Whitfield to the ground. For my brother." Sam was waiting outside, watching the street. Hannah showed him the satchel, telling him it was everything they needed. They rode for home as fast as they could, knowing the danger was far from over. They were just a few miles from the ranch when 6 riders blocked the trail. Colonel Marcus Whitfield himself sat at their head on a black horse. He greeted them with a cold smile, saying he had heard reports of trespassing. Sam reached for his rifle, but it was 6 against 1. Before he could even aim, a shot rang out, knocking the gun from his hand. Rough hands pulled Hannah from her horse while another man searched her coat and found the satchel. Whitfield's smile vanished as he looked through the papers. He called them forgeries and stuffed them in his own saddlebag to be destroyed. He laughed when they said he could not get away with killing them. He told them the sheriff, the judge, and even the federal marshal were all on his payroll. No one was coming to save them. He drew his pistol and aimed it at Hannah. Just then, the sound of dozens of horses filled the air. A large group of riders appeared over the ridge, led by a U.S. Marshal who shouted, "Colonel Whitfield, you are under arrest." The Marshal gave his men a simple nod. "Take him." In an instant, chaos erupted. Whitfield's men were surrounded and pulled from their horses before they could even draw a breath. Whitfield himself spurred his horse, making a run for it, but 2 lawmen rode him down and dragged him back in chains. Hannah just stood there, watching it all unfold. "Mrs. Mallister," a voice said. Marshal Brennan was beside her. "Ruth Crawford sent word. We've been after Whitfield for 2 years, but your documents were the proof we needed." He gave a small smile. "You were the bait, ma'am. Mighty brave bait." Sam was suddenly there, his hand bandaged, pulling her into a tight embrace. "You're safe," he breathed. "It's finally over." Behind them, Colonel Whitfield was thrown into a prison wagon, screaming threats that fell on deaf ears. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of paperwork and questions. The court, the marshal, lawyers from all over, they all wanted to know how one woman had toppled the most powerful man in the territory. Hannah told the story until she was weary of the words. Through it all, Sam was her rock. His hand would find hers during long meetings, his quiet words giving her strength. The trial lasted 3 long weeks. Whitfield's lawyers put up a good fight, but the evidence Thomas Byrne had collected was just too much. Every crime, every bribe was laid bare for the world to see. When the jury announced him guilty on 17 counts, Martha Byrne broke down, sobbing with pure relief. "It's over," Hannah whispered, holding her. "Your brother got his justice." Because of you, Martha said, her face blotchy with tears. You were so brave. Hannah just shook her head. Sometimes courage is just being too scared to do anything else. That evening, riding back to the ranch, the land itself felt lighter. What happens now? Hannah asked. Whitfield's property will be divided among the folks he stole from, Sam said. That includes us. The marshal said I might get significant compensation. He looked over at her. That's good news, she said. It's complicated, he admitted. I spent so long just fighting to survive, Sam said quietly. Now that the fight's over, I'm not sure what to do. Hannah reached out and touched his arm. You learn to live, she said softly. We both do. Together. But their newfound peace was shattered 3 nights later by Sam's screaming. Hannah rushed to his side to find him tangled in his blankets, his face twisted in terror from a nightmare. James, get down, he yelled. Hannah grabbed his shoulders. Sam, wake up! It's me, Hannah! His eyes flew open, but he was seeing something else, something awful from long ago. His hand closed around her throat, not hard, but enough to make her blood run cold. Sam, you're home. You're safe. Recognition finally dawned in his eyes, and his hand fell away. He buried his face in his hands, his body shaking. God, I could have hurt you. You didn't, she said gently. But I have before, he whispered, his eyes filled with shame. It was the war. I was 19. I watched my little brother James die at Gettysburg. He was only 17. The pain in his voice broke her heart. I came out west to forget. But the memories, they never stop. He looked at her, completely vulnerable. Mary used to wake me. After she died, it was just me in the dark. Hannah moved closer. You're not alone anymore, she said. When the dreams come, I'll be here. We're both a little broken, Sam, she said, taking his face in her hands. Maybe that's why we found each other. Tears streamed down his face. Everyone I love dies, he whispered. I'm right here, she answered, pressing her forehead to his. We don't stop loving because we're afraid of losing. We love harder. He pulled her close, and they held each other until the sun came up. It was the beginning of a different kind of healing, one they would have to do together. 2 weeks later, a wagon rolled up to the cabin. It was Miguel. Mrs. Mallister, he called out, we found someone. In the back of the cart were 2 small children huddled together under a thin blanket. A girl, maybe 8 years old with weary eyes, held a little boy who looked pale and sick. What happened? Hannah asked. Found them in a cabin up on North Ridge, Miguel said. Looks like their folks got caught in that last storm. They didn't make it. The little girl looked up at Hannah, her eyes pleading. Please, my brother's sick. He needs help. Without a second thought, Hannah said, bring them inside, now. The next few hours were a rush of heating water and making broth. The little boy, Tommy, was burning up with fever. His sister, Abby, wouldn't leave his side. We were heading to Oregon, she explained, her voice trembling. Pa said there was good land there. Then she looked at Hannah, her small face filled with fear. Are we going to die too? No, Hannah said with a fierce determination. You are not going to die. I promise I will take care of you. When Sam returned, he found his cabin turned into a makeshift hospital. Hannah explained the situation quickly. The boy's bad off, Sam. He needs a doctor. The nearest one is a day's ride, he said, looking at the child's labored breathing. Then he looked at the resolve in Hannah's eyes. I'll go, he said without hesitation. You keep him alive until I get back. I'll ride as fast as I can. The next day, one of the rancher's boys, Tommy, came down with a raging fever. For 36 hours straight, I fought to keep him alive, spooning broth into his mouth and cooling his forehead. His sister, Abby, would not leave his side. She was terrified he would die alone like their parents. He is a fighter, I told her, pulling her close. He has got you, And nobody with a sister like you gives up easy. Just before dawn, the fever finally broke. When Sam arrived with the doctor 3 hours later, the worst was over. Dr. Porter, a kind man from Silver Crossing, confirmed the boy would recover. "You did well, Mrs. Mallister," he said with respect. "My mother was a healer," I told him, the memory surfacing after so many years. After he left, Sam sat with me at the kitchen table. He took my hand. "You are remarkable," he said. I was just tired. We talked about what would happen to the children who had no family left. An orphanage was an option, but I could not stand the thought. "No," I said firmly. "They are not going to an orphanage." "We cannot send them to an orphanage," Hannah said. "The children would be separated and sent to work, never to see each other again." Sam looked at her, and she suggested they could stay right there. "With us," he repeated, the idea settling in. "We have the room," she said, and her voice softened. "They need a home, Sam. They need a family that will keep them safe. You have been here 2 months," he said slowly. 2 months ago, I was a man who just wanted to be left alone. Now you're asking me to be a father. I just want you to think about it." He looked at her, and a real smile touched his lips. "I do not need to think." "You reminded me how to live," he said, squeezing her hand. "I reckon we are the ones to fight for them. If they want to stay, they are ours." Hannah leaned over and kissed him. Sam knelt to be at the little girl's eye level. "Abby, we want to ask you something about what happens next." Her face tensed. "You're sending us away." "No," Sam said. "We want to ask if you'd like to stay with us." Hannah sat beside him. "We know we can't replace your folks, but we would like to be your family, if you'll let us." The girl's chin trembled. "You mean like a real family?" Sam's voice was gentle. "Just like a real family. Family is not about time, it is about choice." "You mean you would keep us? For good?" Abby asked, her voice trembling. Then she burst into tears, wrapping her arms around Hannah, then Sam. She held on tight, as if they were her only anchor. "Yes," she cried. "Please do not send us away." "Never, sweetheart," Hannah promised. "You are home now." Tommy woke to find his sister held by strangers. Abby went to him. "Tommy, these are our new parents. They are going to take care of us." The little boy looked right at Sam. "Promise?" he asked. Sam knelt down. "Cross my heart," he said. Tommy opened his arms and Sam lifted him. The boy settled against his chest, finally safe. Some folks at the courthouse weren't sure about giving 2 kids to a couple who'd only been married a few months. But Marshal Brennan spoke up for them, and Dr. Porter told the court how well they'd cared for Tommy. A letter from Ruth Crawford even made the judge tear up. So, on a cold February morning, Abigail and Thomas Foster officially became Mallisters. As snow fell outside, Tommy asked, "Are we really yours now?" "Really and truly," Hannah promised. "We're not going anywhere." Sam swung the boy onto his shoulders, and for the first time since he'd lost his parents, Tommy let out a real laugh. That night, sitting by the fire, it felt different. "We're parents," Sam said, his voice full of wonder. "After Mary and the baby, I never thought I'd have this." Hannah leaned on his shoulder. "Me neither. But here we are." He kissed her head and said, "Thank you for staying, for giving me a family." She turned to him. "You gave me just as much. I came here with nothing and found everything." She kissed him, a kiss full of second chances. When they parted, Sam said it for the first time. "I love you." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too." I never thought I'd believe in those words again. When spring finally melted the snow, peace settled over the valley. The ranch was doing well, and with the compensation money, they bought new cattle and fixed up the barn. One evening, Sam sketched plans for a new room for the kids. "Can I have a window with real glass?" Abby asked, looking over his shoulder. "You can have 2, Sam promised, his voice gentle. The little girl wrapped her arms around his neck, and Hannah's heart felt so full it ached. This was home. This was the family she had always dreamed of. "Papa!" Tommy shouted, running to Sam on his wobbly legs. Everyone froze. He had only ever called him Sam. "What did you say, little man?" Sam asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Papa," Tommy repeated, grinning. Sam scooped him up, and Hannah could see tears on his face. "Yeah," he whispered. "I'm your pa." Abby then looked at Hannah. "Would you mind if I called you Ma?" Hannah pulled her into a hug. "I would be honored, sweetheart. Your other Ma would be so proud of you. You can love us both." Later that night on the porch, Sam said, "He called me Pa." "I heard," Hannah said softly. "I thought God was telling me I wasn't meant to be a father. Now I reckon he just had a different plan." He took her hand. A better one. Hannah turned to him. "I've been thinking. We signed papers, but we never had a real wedding ceremony. I want it to be properly real, Sam." "It is real," he said. "I know," she replied. "But I want to stand up in front of folks and say I choose you." "There's a traveling minister coming to Silver Crossing next month," Sam said after a long moment. "Is that a yes?" she asked. "That's a definite yes," he smiled. "We'll do it right." But their peace was short-lived. 2 weeks before the wedding, a letter came for Hannah. The return address was from Philadelphia, and it made her blood run cold. She opened it with trembling hands. It was from a law firm demanding payment for debts left behind by her dead husband, Edward. The letter claimed she had money and property that should go toward Edward's obligations and threatened legal action if she did not respond. Hannah's world tilted. She thought all his debts had been settled. She burned the letter, hoping the problem would disappear with the smoke, but her hands would not stop shaking. She wrote back in secret, explaining she had nothing to give. A week later, another letter arrived. This one was worse. It said her response was not good enough. The letter demanded $500 for old debts from her marriage to Edward. That was money Hannah did not have. She showed the papers to Sam. His face grew hard as he read them. "This is blackmail," he said flatly. Hannah confessed, "Edward did sign my name to some loans. I thought they were all settled." Sam slapped the letter down on the table. "We are not paying them. We will fight this." "How, Sam? Lawyers are expensive, and they will drag everything out in court for everyone to see." "Let them," Sam said, his jaw tight. "There is no shame on you, Hannah." "I came to Montana to escape Philadelphia," she said, her voice shaking. "But it just keeps reaching for me." "Then we will cut its hand off," Sam said, pulling her close. "We are not paying them, and we are not running. We will get a good lawyer from Helena, and we are still getting married in 2 weeks." That night, the old nightmares returned. She saw Edward's face, his hands, and woke up screaming. Sam was there in an instant, holding her tight. "He is gone," he whispered. "He cannot hurt you anymore. I have you." "I thought I was free," she cried. "I thought he could not reach me here." "These are just words on paper, Hannah. Nothing more." "But the children," she worried. "If this goes to court, they will hear terrible things about me." "What kind of things?" Sam asked gently. "That you survived years of cruelty. That you were brave enough to start a new life and take in 2 children who needed you. They already know you are strong." He wiped a tear from her cheek. "And nothing will ever change how I feel about you." "You do not know everything," she whispered. Then she told him. "Edward first hit me on our wedding night. I spilled some wine and he struck me so hard I fell. He promised it would never happen again. I believed him." "It was not your fault," Sam said. "But I stayed," she continued, her voice empty. "I made excuses for him. I covered the bruises." She looked him in the eye. "He broke my wrist 2 times. He cracked 3 of my ribs. This scar on my chin. He threw me into a mirror." She took a deep breath. "That is who I was, Sam. A woman who was too afraid to leave." "That is not who you were," Sam said, his voice fierce. "That is what was done to you. You survived. You got out and built a new life. That is the strongest thing anyone can do." "I do not feel strong." "I know," he said. "Strength is what you do when you are scared to death. But you do it anyway." The lawyer, Marcus Webb, arrived from Helena 3 days before the wedding. He was a sharp man who listened to Hannah's whole story. He examined the letters carefully. "The question is if he forged your name or if you signed under duress," Webb explained. "I signed some papers," Hannah admitted. "He would get angry, and I would sign whatever he wanted just to make him stop." "That is coercion," Webb said. "I will need to go to Philadelphia and look at the original documents. It will not be cheap. It will cost $200, maybe more." Sam did not hesitate for a second. "Do it. Whatever it takes. My wife will not live her life in fear." That night, Hannah found Sam in the barn. "You did not have to do that," she said. "Yes, I did," he answered, turning around. He was holding a small wooden cradle he had carved. "I was going to wait until after the wedding to show you this." Hannah's breath caught in her throat. "Sam, I do not even know if you want—" The words spilled out before she could stop them. "I am pregnant." Sam stood completely still. "What?" "I found out last week," she said, her hands going to her stomach. "We are going to have a baby." In 3 quick steps, Sam dropped the cradle and crossed the barn to her. "You are pregnant?" he asked, his voice full of wonder. "Yes." He picked her up and spun her around, laughing and crying at the same time. "We are going to have a baby." He set her down gently. "I love you," he said. "I love you and our children and this baby." The wedding took place on a beautiful spring Sunday. Hannah wore a deep blue dress. Abby had flowers in her hair, and Tommy looked like a tiny gentleman in his suit. The small parlor was filled with all the friends who had become their family in Montana. As the minister began, all Hannah could see was Sam. He was the man who had given her a family and a future. "Do you, Samuel Mallister, take this woman?" "I do," Sam said before the minister could finish. Laughter filled the room. "Very well," the minister said. "Do you, Hannah Prescott, take this man?" "I do," she answered with a smile. The minister pronounced them husband and wife, and Sam kissed her. Later that evening, they sat together on the porch while the children slept. "We are married," Hannah said softly. Sam pulled her close. "Really and truly married." "How does it feel?" Sam asked, wrapping his arms around her. "Like I've finally found where I belong," she whispered. But the peace was shattered when Lawyer Webb returned from Philadelphia. He spread papers on their kitchen table. "The documents were forgeries," he announced. "Edward forged them, not you. I found people who saw him practicing your signature for weeks." Hannah was finally, truly free. With the truth revealed, the future stretched out before them, clear and bright. A real home, a loving family, and a baby on the way. It was more than she'd ever dared to hope for. And it was all hers. "Your signature here." Bank tellers confirmed he signed for those loans all by himself. Hannah felt the world stop spinning. "It is truly over," she whispered. "Harrison and his firm have been reported to the state bar. They knew the debts were false." Sam wrapped a strong arm around her. "What about the money we paid you?" Hannah asked their lawyer. "Keep it," Mr. Webb said with a rare smile. "Think of it as payment for all the trouble they caused. Mrs. Mallister, you are free." The word felt foreign. She had been in chains for so many years. "How can I ever thank you?" "Live a good life. That is thanks enough," he told them. "What about him?" Sam asked softly. "For 7 years he tried to break me," Hannah said. "And he nearly did. There were days I wanted it all to just end." She turned and faced her husband. "But I kept going. And now I am here with you, with our children, and a baby on the way. I won." "Yes, you did," Sam said. "He has been gone a year, and I feel more alive than ever." She smiled like the morning sun. "I won, Sam." He held her close. "We both won." The baby arrived in September, when the first hint of fall was in the air. "Sam," Hannah called from the house. He ran in from the barn. "Is it time?" "It is time," she said, grabbing his arm. "And there is no time for the doctor." "It's coming now, you have to help me." He stammered about delivering calves, but she grabbed his face. "I am not a cow, Sam. I need you to be calm and strong. Can you do that for me?" He took a shaky breath and nodded. When Abby appeared with little Tommy, Hannah sent them upstairs. "Taking care of your brother is the most important job right now," she said through the pain. The hours that followed were a blur of agony and fear. Hannah squeezed Sam's hand, crying, "I cannot do this." He held on tight. "You are the strongest woman I know. You survived Whitfield. You can survive this." Just before midnight, the baby finally crowned. "I can see the head," Sam cried out, his voice thick with emotion. "One last push, Hannah." She gave it everything she had, and then a tiny cry filled the cabin. "It is a girl," Sam sobbed. "We have a daughter." He laid the screaming infant on Hannah's chest. The whole world seemed to stop as Hannah looked into her daughter's gray eyes. Sam sat beside them. "What should we name her?" She thought of all they had overcome. "Hope," Hannah whispered. "Her name is Hope." Sam kissed them both. "Hope Mallister." "It is perfect." Abby called down from the loft, asking if they could see the baby. "Come on down, sweetheart." The girl's face lit up when she saw her tiny sister. Abby held Hope with a tenderness that showed she understood how precious life was. Tommy just pointed and said, "My baby." "That is right," Sam said, ruffling his hair. "Your baby sister, Hope." Hannah watched her family, tears of pure joy streaming down her face. She was so grateful for this life, for all of them. The years that followed were not easy, but they were good. The ranch grew, and with the money from Whitfield's crimes, they built a real house with a big front porch. Abby grew up smart and sharp, devouring every book she could find. Tommy was a quiet boy with a special gift for calming animals, and little Hope was a firecracker from day one, full of sass and determination. "She is going to be trouble," Sam would say with a grin. Hannah would reply, "She is going to be magnificent." When Hope was 3, Hannah found out she was pregnant again. This time, there was no fear, only excitement. Their son, William, was born the next spring, and the family felt complete. One morning, at a chaotic breakfast table, Sam looked around at his 4 children. "I never imagined this." Hannah smiled. "Me neither. But I would not change a single thing." The easy chatter of their family filled the room, a familiar and comforting sound. Will was trying to feed porridge to the dog when Hannah sent him and Tommy outside. She watched her sons go, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had come here with nothing but a borrowed name. Now she had a home filled with love and a husband who adored her. It was more than she had ever dreamed possible. Then a letter arrived. It came on a spring morning, 10 years after she first arrived in Silver Crossing. The handwriting was shaky and unfamiliar. The letter was from Edward's old secretary. The woman was dying and needed to clear her conscience. She wrote that Edward had always blamed Hannah for his downfall. But the secretary knew it was not true. She had seen the bruises. Then came the revelation. Edward's gambling debts were not just bad luck. He had been systematically cheated by men who took advantage of his pride and his drinking. They ruined him on purpose. The woman ended the letter by saying she hoped Hannah had finally found peace. Hannah read the letter twice before tossing it into the fireplace. Sam found her watching it burn. "Just the past trying to reach me one last time," she told him. "It is done now, really done." He put his arm around her. "I am exactly where I am supposed to be." Outside, the sounds of their children playing filled the air. It was a messy, beautiful life. "I love you," Sam whispered. "Promise you will tell me again tomorrow," she said. He smiled. "Promise." The years went on. Abby married a young lawyer and had 3 children of her own, and Hannah learned that being a grandmother was the best job of all. Being a mother. Tommy grew up and took over much of the ranch work. He married a kind school teacher from town. a woman as quiet and gentle as he was. Their children were thoughtful, just like their father. Hope, however, followed her own path. She went to college back east and came home a doctor. She never married, but she delivered half the babies in the county. "I have my work and my family," she once told Hannah. "What else could a person need?" Will became a writer. He wrote down the story of their family, and the book made them known far and wide. "I saw you." And that was all that mattered. That was everything. They grew old on that ranch. Their love was not always graceful, because Sam was stubborn, and Hannah was practical. But it was always there. When Sam got sick, Hannah stayed right by his side. "You should get some rest," he told her, his voice a whisper. "I am not going anywhere," she said. Still stubborn, he managed to smile. "Always." For a second, she saw the man from the auction, the one who saw something in her no one else did. "I am glad I chose you," he whispered. "Me too." It was the only decision that ever mattered. He squeezed her hand, and she held it tight in the quiet room, when she had forgotten what it felt like. "You gave me a life. We gave that to each other. We did it together, always." Sam passed away on a spring morning, with Hannah holding his hand and his children all around him. He was 83 years old. Hannah mourned him because great love comes with great grief. But she kept on living. She stayed in the house they built, surrounded by the family they had made. She tended her garden and sat on the porch he had built, watching the sun paint the sky. And she remembered. She remembered the auction and Sam's voice. "I will take her." She remembered the children who wandered out of the snow and into their hearts. A life worth living. It all started because one man looked at one woman and decided she was worth choosing. And was she? Hannah looked around at her family, at the faces, young and old, at the lives that had sprung from two broken people who'd found each other against all odds. Yes, she said, she was worth everything. That night, after everyone had gone to bed and the house was quiet, Hannah sat alone on the porch. The stars were bright. The same stars she had watched with Sam 1,000 times. The same stars they had pointed out to their children, their grandchildren. Generations of family who had learned to love by watching them love each other. She thought about the woman she had been, bruised, broken, standing alone at an auction, waiting to be chosen. She thought about the woman she had become, loved, whole, surrounded by evidence of learned to choose myself, too. "What did he see in you?" a great-granddaughter asked. Hannah thought for a moment. "Possibility," she said at last. "He saw possibility where everyone else saw only damage. And he was right." "How do you know?" "Because I am here. Because you are all here. This family, this ranch, this life, it all started because one man decided one woman was worth choosing." Another child asked, "And was she worth it?" Hannah looked at all the love that filled her home. "Yes," she said. "She was worth everything. A life well lived." They called her damaged goods. The cowboy called her something else. He called her his miracle. And she was. She was the miracle they had made together, the two of them, out of nothing but stubbornness and hope and the willingness to try again. Hannah smiled at the stars and felt Sam beside her, as present as he had ever been. "I did it," she whispered. "I lived. I really lived. Just like you wanted." The wind rustled through the trees, and somewhere in the distance a coyote called to the moon. Hannah closed her eyes and let peace settle over her. She had been the bride nobody wanted. She had become the woman everyone remembered, and that was more than enough. That was everything.